All right. Again, thanks everyone for joining us. Now I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop within the application where I'm already logged in. Please make it interactive. If you have questions, if I'm not hitting the mark, please redirect me. This is your time, and we want to make sure that we utilize it appropriately. So I am logged in. Of course, it looked at my user role to see exactly what I can and cannot do. I am logged on as a Power Administrator. Therefore, I have my nice little handy icons at the very top of this screen that allow me to quickly navigate. But like I said, if you don't need access to many of these areas, then those would be totally taken away. They're not grayed out. They just, increase your real estate there.
Hey,
so
Susan. I'm sorry. I noticed the screen's a little small on my side. I want to make sure that the end user can see the icons, and if not, there is a way to zoom in a little bit. There's a zoom in on your right side of your screen if you all are viewing the screen. Can everybody see the screen okay? I want to make sure before she gets started. And Ryan, I think you have a lot of folks muted, so.
And I have a full view, by the way, on mine, but I do know what you're talking about with some other programs like Teams and WebEx where we can, our participants can increase their viewing.
Yeah. GoToMeeting is not the best when it comes to that. I just want to make sure everyone can see. Colleen, it looks like you're unmuted. Can you see okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Susan. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. All right, so I thought that we would start with some basics of scheduling, registration, eligibility, checking a patient in, and of course, going through the whole billing process, the reporting, the analytics. So again, like I said, redirect me if you need to. I'm going to go ahead and up here on the top left, I'm going to select my appointment book, which defaults to my preferred view as a user. So if you look down to the bottom of the screen, you're going to notice that there are some links that take you quickly to other views depending on, what you want to look at. But on the far right, the multi-view is in bold because, again, that is my user preference. My user preference is this multi-view, which allows me to see multiple resources on one screen. So resources, as you can see up here at the top, can be people, places, or things. So we can create a schedule with some rules within those areas for any type of a resource that we would like to. Now, obviously, this is going to be a blank slate during implementation, and so your color coding, your appointment types, your limits, your rules and things like that will apply. Very quickly, I'm going to share the other views for you. So there is a daily view here, and again, that quickly gets you to one of those resources. This is Dr. Cook at the very top left, but very easy for me to transfer between the resources as needed. The next two views are a weekly type list. This one, even though it's for Dr. Cook, we still use that double-headed icon to be able to switch very quickly between the resources. But this is just a clean way to see what you have on the book so far. Now, this is a true Windows application, so we can certainly drag around, cut, copy, and paste, whatever we want to do. And you can see some of those options here, even cutting and pasting multiple appointments if we need to move, a group of appointments. And again, you can drag around within the week as needed. The second weekly schedule looks like that multi-view, but if you look closely on the top left, you'll see this is a weekly view for Dr. Cook or one resource as we've discussed. This is something that I typically see a lot of our clinics, they like to see a week at a time when they're trying to, schedule someone with really a specific provider when somebody has a preference. But up here on the top left too, by the name, you'll see there's calendar, so I can quickly go to another week. I can advance out a couple months if I want to, but I always have an icon on that top left that will bring me back quickly to whatever the view was that I was, originally started from. There is a monthly view here that provides you a little bit of metrics based on the templates and the rules that you have defined for each one of your resources. So for Dr. Cook today, we can see that we're 68% booked. So we had available initially 28, and then we still have some available. Now, if by chance you were looking at this view and you wanted to drill down back to that daily view, you simply select the date and it will take you back there. And then I'm coming back to spend most of my time on this multi-view. Now, as a user, as a scheduler, I don't necessarily have to go page by page, week by week, or anything like that. If I want to, I can simply use this little flashlight up here that allows me to search for the next available. So I simply select what it is that I need. Your appointment types will be here. I can search across multiple locations if y'all allow that. And then I can search generically or specifically. So you can classify your resources any way that you want, MDs, PAs, or any other way that you want to classify them. Or the patient may specifically say, hey, I want Dr. Cook, I want Dr. Barclay, or maybe either one of them are okay. Over here on the right, patient may have some, preferences, time of day, day of week. Once we have our selections defined here, the Find button will quickly bring back what we can offer. So instead of us going page by page, week by week, the system's looking at the rules we have within the templates to know what we can offer. And so, of course, somebody's got this provider set up to say that they can see patients on Sunday, which is not typically something that they do, but looks like somebody added that. But whatever appointment they select, the patient, when they make their decision, we'll just open it up to the appointment binder and complete the appointment. Now, we do have an option down here at the very bottom for waitlist capability. So this is one area where you could put them on a wait list if they ask if they could come in sooner if something happens to become available. I'm going to go ahead and close that down. I'm going to go right over here to the very left at the top, 845 with Dr. Cook, and I'm just going to show you how, if you were looking at one of our views, how you would, use it from here and interact. So again, it takes me directly to the appointment book. Again, the appointment types will be here. Those appointment types will just be for Dr. Cook. And then I can add notes here if I want to add notes in the detail area. That will present over on the EHR, so the clinical side can see those notes if you happen to have notes there. Some user-defined fields down here that you can use for whatever purpose you want to. Rename them, make them required if you need to, and they are available for a report in our standard report writer. Up here on the top right, looking up the patient, or if you happen to have already looked up the patient, they'll be in your list here. By user, it will remember the last 5 patients that you've interacted with. So, whoever you were looking at last, it could be the same patient, maybe not. But if it was, you could quickly select from there. Otherwise, we'll go to our lookup screen. And here, I'm sure whatever you're, utilizing today for your search criteria, you can continue to do because pretty much everything's here, right? Phone number, policy number, anything. And even if the patient thinks they're new, you probably do what we always did in clinics. We always searched first because sometimes they thought they were new, but they were not. So we could put any number of characters here, information that we want to. The system will bring up enough additional information to help the user make the decision on whether this is a new patient or an established patient. Now, if it's a new patient, there's a new button right down here, easy to begin that new process. If it's an established patient, I can simply make a selection. It'll be the same registration screen that, we would have come up for a new patient, but obviously it's completed. Alerts, you may or may not see. You're in total control of alerts. Some people love them, some people don't. And it's not all or none. So there's, preferences as to what types of alerts you may want to see, if any, and in what areas of the application you would want to see them in. So there's good alerts here. I mean, we've got a patient balance here, right? We may want to know that there's a patient balance. By the way, if there is a patient balance and someone scheduled an appointment for that patient, immediately via the proactive capability of our tasking, we can send a message to someone immediately to say someone just scheduled an appointment for a patient that has an unacceptable balance. Now, play along with me today. This is a demo environment. So, we've got, when you look at things like her insurance is down here, we've got a lot going on here. But basic demographics, when you're doing a new registration, you can indicate which fields you want to make required, and the headers will be red. So you could do anything from a mini registration to a full registration or anything in between. So like I said, we do have the insurance down here, which I can expand if I want to see a little more information about insurance or if I needed to add insurance. Additional menu options over here on the far left that allow you to interact if you need to. We've got some more user-defined fields, again, to capture information, where you may want to create your own field, something that may be for reporting. I'm going to go ahead and close this down. You'll see Jennifer's information on the appointment book at this point, and we'll say okay at the bottom there, and it's looking at her insurance to say that her insurance does require an authorization, but she does have a couple remain in there. That's something else that can trigger a task automatically. If we recognize that authorization was required, and we might want to put that into, some work groups task list to say, hey, someone just scheduled an appointment and their insurance plan requires authorization and they don't have any. So again, being proactive. So there's Jennifer. I am going to mention we do have with our patient engagement solution, so the patient portal, the capability of patient self-scheduling. We also have, the capability of through the portal for them to do patient self-scheduling or request an appointment. If a patient does schedule their own appointment, it appears right here with the rest of the appointments. The only difference is the audit trail says that the patient did the appointment scheduling versus one of our users. All right, I'm going to pause there just for a moment to see if there's any questions up to this point.
Colleen, it sounds like you may have two devices in the same room on the audio. I'm not sure if you could mute one of those by chance.
And I don't know, did she have a question, or she was just letting me know that no one had a question?
I'm not sure. That she was using the chat earlier too. Maybe we could start with the chat.
Okay, so I'm not viewing the chat. Ashley or Ryan?
I will read it. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
I'm not seeing anybody chat yet, so I will continue on. If she puts a chat out there, I'll pause you.
Okay, thank you.
There we go. She says, what about new patients with the portal?
Yeah, so new patients, you can have a link on your website and they could go ahead, a brand new patient could begin, they can initiate their registration, and that would show up in the demographic record as well. We can also have them complete forms. Now we can do a presentation of that portal as well. We can go into any area of that patient engaged portal that we would want to.
Is that something we would demo today, Susan, or?
I guess it depends on if we have time. If we certainly have time, we can.
Okay. Colleen, any other questions right now? She says, how would you prevent accidental duplicate accounts?
So what we do is we do have a matching criteria. So we call it potential duplicates. A couple things happen. We'll put it into kind of, if it does happen, we'll put it into a report as well as into our utility for being able to merge those together. But what it's going to do with matching, and I can show you a little bit of that matching here. Under processes, I'm up here on the top left. If you look here, person merge, there's different scenarios, right? So we can tell the system what we're looking for, what combination. So it can alert the user at the time it happens. But let's say a patient initially put in just maybe minimal demographics. So they don't usually complete a full registration, even within the portal or from a direct link from patient self-scheduling. But anything that we recognize here will appear in this list here, as well as there's a standard report that could run every evening so that in the morning when you come in, you will have what we call potential duplicates. But this is a way that we can come in and look at our candidates that have potentially been duplicated. We know the exact minute, time that it was done and by which user, and unless it was the patient. And then what we can do is go ahead and merge. It is a seamless merge. And it's really nice because, you'll never know that anything happened. But there is a standard report, too, that could run in our background business processor, like I mentioned, to just identify the potentials, but then you could come in here. We have in our background business processor a way for this merge to happen automatically based on like your criteria here of what you want it to look for to say, yeah, if all of these things here match, then I want you to go ahead and merge for us immediately. And that way the system would do it for you. It will still be represented within a report that you'll be able to see, how often this is happening, the criteria by which it's happening and things like that. But your user right here, if I was to do something and say, put some demographics in on that screen that we had up for Jennifer, then it's going to tell me that I'm potentially duplicating. And it will show me the patient's name and a little bit of information. So I can do really an informed comparison. And then once I say, okay, though, it's going to go ahead and create the new record if I determine that that's what I want to do. But like I said, immediately it knows that I did it, the date, and the second time that I did it. I think you'll find it very helpful. Most of our clients say, yeah, we've greatly reduced our duplication because of those prompts when the users, and because of the background business processor being able to merge them immediately.
Thank you. Anything else, Colleen? Hopefully that answered the question.
All right. Well, if you think of something within the areas that we've already discussed, please go ahead and ask or put it in the chat because we can certainly revisit it. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about checking Jennifer in. Now, of course, with the patient engagement solution, we do have a pre-check concept as well that allows the patients to begin that process, but we still will recognize them when they come in too and kind of do our last little final check-in. You may notice here that I'm hovering over Jennifer's appointment, and what it did was bring up some tooltips. Now, this is a turn on or off feature because just like with the alerts, we want to give you the option of, do you like tooltips or not? And do you want to standardize it for everyone? Or maybe down to the user level, if you're going to say, if you like tooltips, turn them on. If you don't like them, leave them off. I happen to like them. The reason I happen to like them is because when I hover, it's going to give me valuable information, and it's going to be a shortcut if I needed to drill into these areas. So there's up to 70-something options that you can have in your tooltips when you hover, and you can have them listed in whatever order that you want. But you can see these are hyperlinks, right? So if by chance Jennifer says, oh, I have a new phone number, I could quickly, this is the fastest way, fewest clicks for me to go right back to demographics. And same thing with, getting into her insurance area or whatever. I can also see an eligibility was not done. If I had copay information, I would be able to see that from the eligibility information. So again, valuable information on my tooltips. But thinking about checking in, let's go ahead and let's run through a check-in process. This is one of the favorites of our client base because it lets you define exactly what you expect the staff to do. Now, again, they may not see alerts again. It depends on, your preferences. Creating counter. This is the only thing that we have to do in order to check a patient in from this appointment book. That does a couple of things for us. It updates her appointment history to kept. It also provides us with a unique number that goes out on the claim and follows it all the way through historical status. And that in turn provides us with an indicator for the clinical staff that this patient has been checked in. Now, I may not need to add any information here, and I don't have to. I can just simply say, okay, but sometimes depending on the scenario, you might need to add information, and it gives you an opportunity to do just that. But I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, I don't need to add any information. But then what it's going to take me to, look down here on the bottom right, it's going to take me now to my preferred sequence. Again, one of the favorites of our client base. There are, believe it or not, 30-something options as to what you might want your staff to go through, step by step, whatever sequence you want, to check a patient in so they don't miss anything. Now, this can be different by location. It could be different by department, by user, because sometimes different locations have, different process and stuff like that. So it's never an all or none in NextGen for pretty much any of our processes. So you may want them to double check demographics again. It could have been a month or two since this appointment was scheduled. So let's see if there's any changes. Even though insurance was at the bottom of that demographic screen, we get busy at the front desk and we may just kind of, glance over that, right? But now we're prompted to focus on insurance. Let's ask her specifically, do you have any insurance changes we need to know about? Now, we don't have a hard stop here, but down here at the bottom, we can turn it on. There's a preference for a hard stop to where they have to say, the user has to say yes or no. I double checked with the patient about the insurance. And then we're going to go ahead and go on further, but now it's showing me a $20 copay and back to the authorizations we saw when we scheduled her appointment. And here we have a patient balance. Some of our clients like for the front desk to attempt to collect additional money if there are any outstanding what we call patient balances. Now this was really intended, this screen was for just a quick reference. I do have a patient balance column here though that shows the balances for the dates of services that they are outstanding. So maybe besides the $20, I can also collect some of this $4,000 today. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my next step, which would be my payment entry screen if you want the front desk to, again, collect money and post it into the system as well. So this allows me to indicate, whatever I took and the pay code, your pay codes would be here. So keep that in mind. Again, this is a demo environment, but whatever pay code you want to associate with whatever payment you took, we do have totally integrated what we call CC Pay for credit cards and checks. So what we can do, we can also house compliantly a card on file. We can swipe, tap, whatever device you have. And of course, we can scan or key in information off of a check right here from the integration within our payment entry screen. Go ahead and get that approval at this point in time. Now, here's the finish line. So really what I want you to note is the fact that not necessarily the screens that I went through, the fact that you can define your own check-in and check-out process if you want to, and kind of guide your users through whatever's needed. Now you see a color code change for patient tracking. You see kept because it updated her appointment. And you see a strike through, kind of like, in the paper world where we used to strike through, the list of people that we were expecting today as they checked in. So Ryan, I'm going to pause there again just for a moment. See if anybody.
Nothing's come through the chat quite yet beyond the duplicates, so I think we're moving along nicely. If there are any questions, guys, please, ladies and gentlemen, just throw them in the chat for us. But yeah, I think you're good, Susan.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the fact that when we looked at the eligibility, it said one had not been done. So a couple of things there to consider. So first of all, if this patient had been on the books for a while, our background business processor, you will hear me mention the automation tool many times over. Again, one of the favorites of our client base because it does allow the automation on an assigned schedule and no need to push a button. It just happens once you kind of set it and forget it. But one of those is eligibility based on appointments on the books already. So you can plug in your little value there 1 day, 2 day, 3 days in advance of the appointment date, whatever you prefer. And it will do a batch eligibility check for everybody. And it will bring the information back into their insurance area, like, if there was a deductible, if there was, a copay, it will enter it into the insurance maintenance screen for the patient. So the staff doesn't have to enter that $20 or whatever comes back. In addition, again, being proactive, it will, based on the responses, there's 30-something potential responses. It can trigger tasks. So if there's a subscriber ID problem or the patient thought they had traditional Medicare and now we're told they have Medicare Advantage, so we need to ask some additional information because we don't have all the information we need. So all those little things can be done. But we also can do it on demand because sometimes patients walk in and say, I have new insurance, or maybe you had to work a patient in, right? So there's always, an opportunity to maybe do it real time. And that's what I'm going to show you right now. But really, we just need to fill in the blanks a couple things here. Your types of services can default based on your preferences you've already defined. What types of services do you provide? Hopefully the payers honor that. Some do, some don't. So sometimes they just send you everything they have as far as benefits. Sometimes they will consider the types of services that came across with the request. Now here on the bottom right, or towards the middle right, I'm just going to hit the submit button. This is the format that it comes back in. Now, what we try to do, because, sometimes if you've ever looked at one of these, I'm sure many of you have, it can be quite lengthy if that insurance company sent a little bit of everything. But now, if we get preferred benefits, we try to bring those to the top. So, like I said, if we thought they had Medicare and it was traditional, that would be in a banner up here at the top. Now, I can always toggle and see all the benefits, but this is nice because we bring these to the top. But over here on the left-hand side, under benefit details, sometimes there's 4 or 5 tabs, sometimes there's 12 or 15 tabs, again, depending on what that payer provides. You can use these for navigation. So if you need to, if you want to select on one of those so that it drills you down into that area, it's a nice way to quickly get to an area without having to scroll up and down and looking for the information that you need. Now, NextGen Audit trails everything, just like I was talking about. We know who duplicates, we know who schedules appointments, we really know who does everything, even if they just looked at a patient record and did not do anything. But the same thing goes for any of these processes that we run, right? So up here on the top left, there's a history tab, and that allows you to see everything, every time that this was done, even if it was done automatically. Now, again, playing along with me in a demo environment, I'm not getting anything back, right? But if I had deductible, co-insurance, and things like that, that would all be represented here. And even some of that information, as I mentioned, would have populated automatically into the patient's specific insurance area. In this case, her Blue Cross maintenance that we had up earlier. And there's a print button down at the bottom right if you ever need to print that. All right, one other thing I want to talk to you about, patient cost estimation. I don't know if y'all do patient cost estimation, but if you do, this is a good way to do it. Now, you don't, from an eligibility and a patient cost estimation perspective, you don't have to be on the appointment book to do that. I could be in the billing department. I could have no screens up except for my navigational links, because look over here on the far right, handy little icon for eligibility, handy little icon for patient cost estimation. But if I am just going off of the appointment book, like I did, I just right clicked and said, take me here. It's going to pre-populate the patient information, the insurance or insurances, and over here on the far right, the appointment information, and it would do service type if I had something in my preferences for that. Now, this allows me to put in whatever code or codes I want to put in. I'm just going to throw a couple in here just to show you how this works. So let me talk about exactly what it's looking at to do before I hit this submit button. So it's going to look at the eligibility information. If we have not done one on this patient within 7 days, it's going to automatically run one when I hit submit. It's also looking at any managed care contracts that you may have associated with, this patient. Insurance. I don't know if you're going to have contracts or not, but you're going to have to, if you build them in, you'll have your allowables and everything represented. And it also, though, can look at the historical posting activity. So it kind of looks at all those to bring back the information. So you can see what it just brought back for me, okay? Now, over here on the far right, where all this important estimation information is, again, if I was really connected with the eligibility information, I would potentially have copay, co-insurance, and things like that. And then right down here where it says 80%, this is my default value that you can put in whatever, 100%, 60%, 80%. That's going to be the calculation into the information up here to tell the staff what it is we would like for you to try to collect from the patient. Now, we don't have to collect this right now. This could have been done, in advance of them even coming in. It could be done, even though we're supposed to be doing it up front, right? The No Surprise Act. Let me tell you what, potentially you're going to be responsible for. But we may not actually be collecting money today. I mean, if we are, there's a make a payment button, and you can put in the amount, whatever that happens to be, because maybe you tell them you want 164, but they're, maybe they don't give you 164. So you could put in another amount. But you also can just print this out for the patient in anticipation of some services that you may be rendering. This is really good for procedures and stuff, right? So those are any high dollar procedures that you may do. So let's go ahead and just preview what one may look like. Now this form that I'm going to bring up, or this little document, this was created in our file maintenance in our forms area. This is just a sample. Yours could look completely different because you're going to be able to create your own. You can dress it up with your logo, put a signature line if you wanted to, and any additional information. But the nice thing is you get to create it right here within your NextGen program. And then, of course, down here at the very bottom, again, it's part of that audit trail that we have. So that's just wanted to point out that you do have the patient cost estimation that you can do real time, or whenever you feel like doing it.
That's awesome. So Susan, we did have one question come in that I'm going to address real quick. It was a great question. I want to be very clear, Missy. In the NextGen world, we use two different words, very important words: customization and configuration. So you used customization in your question. We refer to customizations as, in essence, new builds to add to where the system doesn't allow for. And customizations are generally like billable events. So if you're asking for something that doesn't exist at all, isn't a setting within the system, you want an extra button added to a template, like when we do our EHR demo next week, that's customization. What you're asking is configuration. And the original build, you will work with GBS and NextGen if you choose to go the NextGen route. During your implementation, we will configure everything to your liking, and then moving forward, you do have the ability, the reins are all yours, to reconfigure as needed. So all of the setup, all of the configuration. We'll work with you during the original build and the implementation. But yes, moving forward, you can reconfigure all you want, and you in essence own the system. But you do need to understand that differentiation between configuration and customization. So hopefully that answered that question. And then we did have one more come in, Susan, that I'm going to have you address. It was, in order to use the cost estimate, do we have the ability to load all of our allowed amounts with each insurance company for each code?
Are you asking if you have to do that or if you can do that? Either way, you can load them in. We have a little contract utility to help make that less painful of managing those contracts initially and ongoing. And we also have the capability of you utilizing the cost estimation without the contracts. Now, obviously, you're not going to get the same type of information, right? But you could use it without having your contracts built out, and it could look at historical posting activity.
Perfect. And I will say, Jacqueline, I would say 90% of our clients do build their contracts in. It makes life much easier. The thing that you got to think of is our payer contracts are ever changing, right? So we kind of assign somebody, as a quote unquote owner, because that's going to be like a ever changing, or the ability for you to modify is always there. But yes, we do generally build the contracts in. That's all that's come through so far. So sorry about that, Susan, but you can get back at it.
All right. And just one more comment on the contracts. Some of our clients don't build out all of their contracts. They would their largest ones, like if they have a large Medicare population or Blue Cross or whatever. So you don't necessarily have to build all of them out unless you just want to. But you definitely can, and then you get, additional benefits from that patient cost estimation and from your reporting as well, right? Because then we can automatically notify you that if there's any variance under or over in the payment allowable and the adjusted area. So we track all of that activity. All right. I'm trying to think of any other questions around anything to do with scheduling, registration, information capture, check in, check out before I move on to another area.
Nothing additional in the chat so far, Susan.
All right, we'll go ahead and we're going to close down the appointment book. Now, this is true Windows, so I can keep opening up Windows if I needed to. But because you may not be familiar with NextGen, we're just going to close that down and make it simple. Let's talk about a couple of other things now. So I am, and correct me if I am wrong, I am going to assume that you're hoping to capture all of the charges at the point of care. And so if so, when we start talking about billing, we're talking about what's in the holding tank and what's going to happen from there. Is that an okay assumption or no?
Answer is yes.
Okay, so hopefully you're not going to have a lot of manual charge entry. Oh, I do want to show you one other thing here in the appointment book. So thinking about, well, a couple of things. I'm going to close that back down. So you have an ASC, which I'm assuming is the different tax ID. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so NextGen is a true enterprise solution. So right up here, one of my handy little icons, because I have security to get to it, remember, is that we can have an enterprise. So I can have the clinic and I can have, let's just say my ASC here, that I can have access to. Now that, again, that's a security right, so I could toggle back and forth very easily if I needed to, because it is one database. I don't have to log back in over there to the other practices. I come back and forth very seamlessly. I could carry a different security role within each one of these practices, as we're calling it within our enterprise, but I did want to point that out. Now, just quickly here, because I'm not sure who we have on the line as far as who's represented, but we can have different multi-views too, but basically if you had a separate practice, you would have your separate ASC view. over within that practice, but I just wanted to show you from a configurable perspective, we can accommodate any kind of schedule that you need to have. So, you know, again, even your OR rooms and things like that as needed, or a PAT nurse who maybe schedules appointments to make, whether it's calls or face-to-face. So just wanted to point that out before I move forward. All right. So now what we're going to talk about is that holding tank. So let's hope we get all those charges, pretty much all those charges in, and they're sitting in a holding tank waiting for us to process. What's that going to look like? So up here on the top left, there's a file pull down menu where if I want to, I could go in and look at the pending charges. Now, if you notice up here at the top, I have different ways that I can filter if I need to. So depending on how your billing department works, what's going to be done, or who's responsible for, maybe somebody's responsible for Medicare, Medicaid, somebody's responsible for commercial, whatever, I can filter out whatever I want. Or I can simply, down at the bottom, say, show me everything that we need to get out the door. Now, this is every line item. So as I move left to right, you'll see the CPT codes for each line item. Anything that was captured, you know, maybe within the point of care, whether automatically or whether somebody added it or something, modifiers, diagnosis code or codes will all be here as well. Now, if by chance I wanted to do some kind of review here, I could simply right click and say, take me to the chart, and I could review in more detail. If I had security to get to the EHR, because this is an integrated program, up here at the top, there's an EHR that can take me to that patient's record. Once I open up to their chart, and I don't even have to look up the patient again. It already knows what patient record that I would have been, you know, viewing at that point. So if you're going to do any kind of review, you can utilize this screen. Now, what I'm going to talk about is another favorite of our client base. I've referenced it a couple of times, this background business processor. Basic functionality, it's not an additional module or anything that needs to be purchased. So let's look at some examples of some of the jobs that it can do for you. This daily process here, this is kind of pretty typical of what our clients utilize here. So again, these jobs are already here. I'm just going to activate them, put a little bit of my own parameters on there, assign a schedule, and I'm good to go. So we already talked about batch eligibility, right? So we know that that can happen automatically. But let's talk about 4 through 12. So NextGen has their own upfront claim edits. So that's how our clients have a very successful and high first pass clean claim rate. And when I say we have our own upfront claim edits, it's not just your basic demographics or referring provider. It is ICD-10, CCI edits, LCDs, NCDs, all those CMS rules that, you know, that need to be updated, that we update for you as new rules are published. Again, we don't wait until, you know, once a year we do some kind of special update or anything. We update them as new rules are published. So all of those items that was in that pending grid that we just looked at, we can just tell the system, hey, find all those unbilled encounters, run them through the claim edits, and identify if anything needs our attention, and send us tasks. So right back to the auto, you know, being proactive with the auto creation of tasks. Now, when you define these tasks, they can go again to a work group, to an individual. They can be separated out by location, provider, financial class, payer. There's a lot of parameters. Again, never all or none. Now, once it runs the claim edit process, we're not going to hold up the clean ones just because we may have, you know, a few that need attention. We're going to go ahead, and if you're dropping anything to paper, we'll do that. Obviously, create our claim files, right? Now, the acknowledgement and the claim status request and things. When we get the responses back here, they also can trigger tasks. Because they're made, you know, and again, the tasks are already in our system. You're just going to activate them. Again, put on a couple of your parameters, assign them to a specific work group or user, and then it'll automatically happen. Now, same thing with ERA, right? It's going to look at how you want things to post. It's not the NextGen way, right? We have a remit library that allows you total control on what's going to post and what's going to be kind of kicked out into the non-posted bucket, as well as any denials. So when it looks at the ERA file, it'll post according to those preferences. And when it does, again, if there's anything that needs to trigger a task, maybe denials, in different kinds of denials, right? because you can put rules on each denial type that you may want it to do a certain function for you. Like if there's a denial that comes in that you always know you're going to appeal, you may want to place that in an appeal status. You may want to automatically drop a letter. You may want to send a task to the appropriate person and say, hey, this just automatically got put into the appeal status. So there's a lot of functions that can happen based on how you want it to happen. And then, like I said, you define your own schedule. How often does this take place? Because you're not going to push a button every time you want it to happen. It's going to look at this. Now it can, right here, if you want to, up here at the top, based on completion, send email notification to anyone. You don't necessarily have to have it, but you've got some rules up here that if anybody, needs to receive notification. Now, that sounds pretty magical, right? So, you just activate it and it does a lot of work for you. So I'm going to pause there to see if there's, I'm not sure of the automation you may have today, if you have any, if this is comparable, or if you even have any questions about how this all works. So again, give you.
There was one question that came through, Susan.
Okay.
Jacqueline Stokes mentioned that she saw hospital charges within the pending charges and was wondering if you could explain and or show how the doctors are submitting hospital charges while rounding.
Okay, so that's going to be in the mobile. That's going to be in our mobile application if the doctors want to do that. So within our mobile application, they can have a rounding list and then they can add charges from there or just send you a copy of the face sheet and let you add the charges. But whether the doctor adds the charges in mobile or not, or whether you get the list and you add the charges for the doctor, they're still going to end up in that pending list. Does that make sense? Because anything unbilled that's in our system that we recognize needs to go out the door will be in that same list.
Susan, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, no, go for it, Vince. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Susan, with the mobile too, that comes with the light version of mobile for the providers as they're in the clinics, or the hospital, right?
So, Ryan, I'm going to let you respond to how y'all have that set up for mobile or mobile plus, whatever's needed.
Yes, so there are Jacqueline, Colleen, and we can get more granular with this, if you have additional questions. But in essence, from a high level, there's two versions. There's a NextGen Mobile and a NextGen Mobile Plus. NextGen Mobile comes with the software at no additional charge. Mobile Plus comes with a small subscription fee per provider because sometimes practices, not all of the providers want to utilize mobile. So it's not like a all or none. We could set individual providers up, and like I said, it's a small fee per provider. And that plus just comes with some additional functionality. So again, if we want to get more granular, we can. But I think the point there is, yes, it's possible, Jacqueline, and there are multiple versions of the NextGen Mobile which you could utilize. Hopefully it looks like she said yes, that's exactly what she was asking, so she was thanking you. Nothing else has come through, so I'll hand it back over to you, Susan.
All right. Okay, so if there's no question about all this magic that's going to happen, then we'll go ahead and we'll look at where are those tasks going to be when I, get ready to see what's going on. I log in and I might want to say, hey, what do I have to do today, right? If it's going to happen automatically. Now, I will mention, certainly we can still run reports to identify denials and work list and everything. It's just that the work log manager with the tasking is more efficient. But sometimes people are like, oh, well, if I can't run a report for all that, then, I don't think I'm comfortable with that just yet. And I'm like, oh, no, everything I've showed you that you can do automatically, you can certainly still do manually or still, run reports for denials or work lists and things like that. But up here in the very top center, there is a work log icon. That work log icon allows you to see the tasks that you're responsible for. So when the tasks are activated in our file maintenance area, someone, I guess the managers or whatever of each department, are going to assign an individual or a work group to certain types of tasks. Now, just to show you that, look down here at the very bottom, there is a My Task button. I could say, hey, let me see, my tasks, right? I could see everything. Because, a lot of times we have to multitask. Maybe I work claim edits, plus I work denials, plus who knows what else, right? So, I may have a lot of different types of tasks. But up here at the top, if I decide I don't want to see everything that I'm responsible for, I'm only focused on certain types right now, I can come up here and filter any way I want to, even my task types. Now, don't get married to these right here, because these are just, we have everything under the sun as examples, even very granular tasks. But if you had a handful of tasks here and you came up here and said, oh, I want to work on a couple of these here, you could do that. You could just say, hey, maybe I just don't need to see the completed ones, just everything that needs to get completed. And there I have a more streamlined way to work on specific items. So at any time you can certainly see all, because down at the bottom right, it's going to tell you how many things you have outstanding. These don't go away. If you don't complete them tomorrow, they're still going to be here waiting on you. Now, you may have something you're working on and you may have it in progress, because you can see, look over here on the left, this header says in progress. But notice as I move left to right, all the nice information that goes along with these tasks. So the goal was to give you enough information that you don't have to keep drilling down, click, 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 until you get to what you need to see. And that you can see I've got the reason code and everything here. Now, besides all the nice information that we're going to share with you about these tasks, it's very interactive here. So if I wanted to drill down here, I'm just going to, let's see what we've got here. I'm just going to right click to show you how easy it is. This says missing information, but non-covered services. Let's see what we've got here. I got anything else? Let's see what we got here. Okay, so now this place of service, in reality, we would have caught that, right? We would have caught that with a claim edit. That would have never gone out the door out of NextGen. But for the sake of conversation, just to show you that any of these, once I review all the information, then I can right click and I know where I need to go. Anything that I would need to go back to the charge entry screen to make a correction, I would be able to do that without having to look up the patient or even remembering the date of service. Now, my list is still here. Again, this is Windows, right? And if I had a lot of tasks, and I don't know, some of you may work from multiple monitors like some of our clients do, you could have your task list up on one screen and be working over here on the other. But it's just all a preference, right? So here, if I needed to modify anything, there's a little open button down here in the middle left. I could just say open everything and let me make my changes. Now, if I needed to make other changes, there's insurance tab, and again, handy little icons right here at the top. Or if by chance I didn't know what to do with this just yet, I needed to go view documentation, that's where that integration is really viable here and very efficient, because I could, again, hit the EHR. It would take me right to John Turner's chart. I don't lose my place here. I can look at documentation for this encounter, whatever I need, and then hit the little icon to bring me right back over here, and I'm right back where I started from. But this opens it up to let me change whatever I need to change. If I needed to go over here to change that place of service, I would. If I needed to even maybe delete a line item and add something else or add a modifier or anything, I could do all of that right from here, resave it in the middle there. And then I could on-demand bill right here. And if I had multiple line items, NextGen doesn't make you send every line item back if you need to rebuild something. You can just select the line items that had the issues if it wasn't all of them. And I could go ahead and on-demand bill this. Now, again, I can come right back to my list. If by chance I could not complete it today, I can double click on it instead of right click on it, and I can put in notes. I could even put, now it's in progress, right? I started it. So if my manager ran a report or looked at it, they know I'm working on it. And then if I added some little notes, I can hit Control-Shift-D and add some notes. Maybe I still couldn't complete it today. But once I complete it here, down here at the bottom, I can put a completion date and a completion reason. Y'all can have your own reasons here, so that when reports are run, that, management knows exactly what was done. Now, if you need to follow up on it and you don't need to follow up on it for a couple days or something, you could go ahead and put some other follow-up date on it and then not see it in your task list if you didn't want to until that follow-up date arrived again. So that's just an option there. Up here at the very top, there's an instruction tab. I don't have any instructions with this particular one, but when tasks are activated, managers can put step 1, step 2, step 3 in the file maintenance task so that it shows up every time this task, is in someone's task list. And that's very nice. So that if someone needs to know, oh yeah, I forgot exactly what was expected. How am I supposed to, handle this particular type item? And then you could just say, okay, and update it. So very interactive. If somebody's out, I could reassign these in batch mode. If I was a manager or if I just had security, I could select every one of these, right click, and reassign them to somebody else. So I could go in here and I could open this and I could say, okay, I'm going to assign these now to a different person or a different work group, because my users are here, but also my work groups are down here too. I've got different somewhere. I know we've got some work groups that we've created somewhere. But anyway, you could reassign in batch mode if you needed to. All right. Any questions about the tasking? Now you can print from here too. You can right click and you can print, but you also can add some additional logic to tell it, like when I was talking about the appeals, to automatically print things. If you do in-house collection efforts, this is great for in-house collection efforts because you can define the phases of collection efforts. Maybe you don't need to know about it initially as far as the task goes. Maybe you want it to drop a letter or 2 or 3 letters. It will mark it in the chart. Maybe at some point you make a phone call, so then they would be here. Things like that if you do in-house collection efforts. But if I had, let's see if I also have some self-pay balances here. So I do have some self-pay balances as well. So there's a lot of rules behind this title. You get to title them yourself. Even though we have the task available, you're going to name it yourself. But there's some pretty cool phases you can put into place if you do in-house collection efforts before you potentially send it out to an outside collection agency, because I can say, yeah, drop those letters, mark it in the chart, but I want to make sure first that they did receive 2 or 3 different statements, whatever your number is going to be. And I can put my threshold. This says somebody just set this up for greater than 250 for patient responsible balance, but with no behind the scenes, it also says, I think 2 statements were sent out. But you also could say after 2 statements, 3 letters, then we're going to pre-list it, and we're going to put it in here as a pre-list for potential bad debt. And again, you could also say, we're going to do something from there. We're going to, I don't know if you have an approval process, if you're going to write them off and send them to outside collection agency. I don't know who has to maybe approve that, but there is an approval process for these tasks as well. Now, the cool thing about this is that it's not just, a tasking that creates tasks. We're talking about auto-performing functions for us, like dropping letters or, going ahead and writing things off, or small balance write-offs, or sending to outside collection agencies. But this will also update. So see all these self-pay balances we've got due here? Payments are coming in all the time, right? I mean, we're posting payments. Patients may be, making payments via the portal or direct, pay from a, bill pay a link on your website. So some of these may no longer need our attention that are sitting here. It can auto update and drop it off of everyone's task list where it sits, but it will mark it in the patient's chart so that you know that there was a problem, but then, a payment came in and it was okay, or it reached historical status because they paid off the full balance or whatever happened. So it is nice that this task list can update and perform functions for you, not just create a list for you. All right, so I don't know if this is something you have or if this is a new concept for you. So again, I'm going to open it up to see if there's any questions about the different types of tasking.
We didn't receive any questions when you mentioned that before. I think we're good to move forward.
Okay.
All
right.
Susan, all too well. Tasking is one of those funny things that once you start to get more granular with it, people fall in love with it. And there's all types of questions, but It is a very slick functionality for sure.
Absolutely. And even if you didn't want to go, if you're not used to something like this, sometimes you gradually kind of evolve into it. You activate a few tasks just to get the hang of it before you kind of say, okay, we're going to put everything into a task, because we're not if you're not used to looking at it from this perspective, sometimes people, get a little overwhelmed, but they end up absolutely loving it because of the auto, perform function that it can provide for you, and how interactive it is with the patient's chart. So it is, again, one of the favorites. All right, if you don't have any questions, but again, we can revisit that if needed. I just want to quickly show you, you saw me drill down to the charge entry screen right from my tasking, but if I ever needed to, go to my charge entry screen here, I have a button here. So if I'm in the billing department and I just need to get to the charge entry screen quickly, I certainly can. And then I can look up at a patient or an encounter. Same thing with, let's talk a little bit about, posting. If I'm manually posting anything, there is a posting icon here at the top. I have easy access to, and then these are my batches, or these are our batches in our demo here. But you can create batches. We do use batches for checks and balance purposes. So I don't know if you're familiar with batches. A lot of people are, but that's what this is. Just checks and balances, creates a ledger for us. But if we need to key anything in manually, I can come in here, over here on the far left where I'm highlighting, I can search for the patient by, name, do a complete lookup, medical record number, claim number. I could even put in just, if I happen to know that encounter number that I'm referencing, I can just key it in, and then it will bring it up. And then it's basically saying, well, there was only one line item here, but it's saying, who are you posting from? So if I was posting from Blue Cross Blue Shield, I would make that selection because that's what was attached to the encounter initially. And you see what it did down here at the very bottom at the line item. Now I have my contract set up. So, and hopefully, all your Blue Crosses are coming in electronically anyway. But if I needed to come down in here and change anything, or, this is what it looks like if you have your contract set up. But there's adjustment columns as well. Over here on the right, if I needed to add any, line reason codes to the line items, I can. Even if I add or change a status manually here, posting, or add, different types of reason codes or remark codes here, those still can trigger tasks. So it doesn't matter whether it comes in via ERA or whether I was manually posting, the same functionality exists if I had rules at those reason code or remark code, levels. Now, if I say I'm posting a payment from the patient, then of course it's going to change a little bit down there at the line item level. Now it says patient, patient pay and patient adjustment. So just changes just a little bit here, but it's, very, very clean, very pretty much self-explanatory, right? We do everything from this one payment entry. We call it a transaction posting screen, really, because it's for payments, refunds, adjustments, take backs, anything that you have to do, you do it on this one screen here. And then ultimately what happens is that, like I mentioned, it does create that ledger of activity, because you're gonna balance back, right? So whatever you've posted, and it'll be in the order that you posted. But again, you can resort or regroup by your headers any way that you want to. But down here at the bottom, I'm supposed to have $615 that I'm balancing back this particular batch to. Now, if I don't have that $615, or, that check amount may have been $2,000 I'm posting against. But if I don't balance, then we know, I need to look to see what potentially went wrong. So this list here, just like with our tasking, has drill down capability. So I could drill right back down to an item that I might say, oh, there's the problem right there. I can come in here, maybe that was $200, not $20 or whatever. And I can resave it, and then I can close this back down and come back to my list to see if I balance now. Once I do balance, it's going to say that I balance, and then I can go ahead and process or post, whatever you call it. See, right now, most of mine say out of balance because, I'm not closing anything out. Can someone ask, do y'all still have, hopefully not, if so, not many, any manual batches that you're still posting, or are you getting any manual EOBs? Are you getting those converted into ERAs?
They still have manual posting, they say?
They do have
Yes, they're still
for insurance.
some of each.
Okay. So you can, if you want to, in your batch, when you're for the transaction screen, I can attach an EOB. Now, this is where a dual monitor really helps. I just have a really small little laptop here, but I can, resize, or I can put it left, right, underneath, whatever I want to, or on a separate monitor. But I could actually post off of this. And what I could do is once I posted it for that patient, I could just watch right here where I'm highlighting. I could take that 1 or 2 inch portion, see how I'm outlining it? That would automatically link it with this encounter and take the header and the footer of this paper EOB and attach it. So that's pretty nice if you had still that scenario. All right. And then once you balance out and post or process your batches, they disappear from this list. So you don't need them in here anymore once everything's all good. But you will see too, I have some patient pays. So, this ledger here, now we don't have any real credit cards, so we put a couple of easy, quick little things in here. But if patients are making payments, they come into the same area. They come into a batch too, because they may have made them online. So you'll have a batch for that too. It'll automatically create a batch. All right. Let me go back. Let me go up here to my chart icon. And let's just look up here. I'm going to look up Danny for a second. So this is what we call the financial chart. So we can look at it from the individual patient level or the account level where there's a guarantor. But this is at the individual patient level. And here's a little financial tab here that, I can continue to expand to see all the activity against anything that I had. If I want to see all the detail, of course, I have an encounter tab, and now I can come over here and I can see, let's go down to this one. I can see whatever I want to see. So I can see payments, adjustments. That doesn't mean all of this went out on the statements, but I can see within my ledger, the reason code or codes. See this little icon right here? We automatically, when we post, we'll create a little view, a little image here. And that way you can see here, it creates a little EOB from a posting. So, even when we do it with the background business processor electronically. So if I need to drop this with a secondary or something, or I need this for any purpose, that it has everything on it that I need. So that's going to be auto created, and you'll have a little indicator right here. In addition, you'll have the claim status for each encounter represented too. And by the way, this little patient information bar up here at the top is somewhat configurable as to the information you would like to see on it. So in this area, there's some preferences. Remember the difference between preferences and customization. You're just kind of checking boxes as to what you would want to view up here. And then the little hover buttons up here at the top are nice on the right. They allow you to see appointments. And again, they allow you to see insurance or insurances, patient balances, recall plans that they may be on. All right.
Susan, real quick, payment plan functionality is certainly available, correct?
Yes, payment plans in a couple different ways. We can also do it through the NextGen Pay Merchant, which is Instamed. We can do it through there, and we also have it here as well. We can store a credit card on file. Let me bring up something right quick, and I will show you something here. She has a credit card on file. And so there's a credit card compliantly stored with a consent. Look over here, automated payments and collection. They could sign a form that says that we can automatically charge their credit card if it doesn't exceed a certain amount anytime they have a patient balance in their responsible bucket, as we call it, primary, secondary, tertiary, patient responsible buckets. So we would have all the details here, and we can automatically just, and they'll get notification first though that we're fixing to charge their credit card X amount of dollars. So hopefully that's good. All right. I know I had to keep some areas high level because I was watching the time. I would love to go into reporting into financial analytics if everyone's in agreement.
I think there's one more quick question about the payments.
Okay. Sure.
Colleen states, if a patient makes a payment via a check or credit card, that's to be applied to both the ASC and the practice, can we apply payments at the time of receipt? For example, $550 check that is split 500 to the ASC and 50 to the practice.
Okay, because those are two separate practices, we're going to have to double check with how Instamed splits that up.
Okay, and Instamed is the payment processor.
Correct. We call it NGPay, powered by Instamed. That's our merchant that we use. So Ryan, if you could write that down so that we could follow up on that to see how if they can split that. From my understanding, there's some enterprise functionality, but we need to double check because we wouldn't want to mislead you.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% certain. So note made. We'll figure out about split payments for you, Colleen.
Split between the enterprise, so two practices, if I'm understanding it correctly, the ASC and the clinic side.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, I will tell you, we do have enterprise batch posting. So if we were manually doing something, we have the enterprise batch capability, but we need to double check with the merchant. All right, ready to go to reports?
Yeah, nothing else has come through at the moment, Susan. Good to go.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about the standard reports and then we'll move into the analytics. But up here on the left-hand side, there's a pull-down menu for reports. Again, these are controlled by security, but there's all kind of reports, what we call our standard reports, and that can be run right out of the box as is. Of course, remember, well, let's go back to general for a moment. Remember down here at the bottom, I talked about potential duplicates. Significant events is our audit trail. Let me go in there for just a moment because this audit trail is pretty cool. We also have an advanced audit capability. Remember I said pretty much we time and date stamp everything that's going on, even house pre and post modification information. So there's a couple ways I could look at this. I could come in here and I could say, wonder what Susan's been doing lately. Looks like somebody's got me entered in here twice. And I could pull it for a certain period of time, what's she been doing this week, right? If anything. So I might want to sort it or not, but let's just see what I've been doing. So I've done a lot that I've just looked at stuff and not done anything to, right? But look over here. Here's my date and time. And if I came behind and modified it, it's there too. But surely I've made some changes. Oh, I've changed addresses here and demographics. I've overridden conflict for scheduling, which I don't know if I was supposed to have done or not, but I had security to do it. Here's, again, some changes, but claims created. And look over here on the left-hand side. It even shows you the encounter number. There's a page that I viewed. And even if I made, let's see if we have any here. If I voided out charges, or payments or anything, or changed any of that, insurance or anything, it is all in here. So that's one way of looking at it, is to say, okay, is to say, I want to see what one person's been doing for whatever time period that I decide I want to search for, right? Because you've got all kind of time periods, even a custom date, all the date. And then if I don't care about the creator so much, I say, no, I'm going to include all records for all users. I might want to do it by event. So I might want to say who all touched this, who all touched that, who all deleted a charge, who all scheduled an appointment. So these are what we call the significant events, and there's a lot of them here, and whatever I'm tracking, I just error across whatever it is that I want to see in this particular report. Then I can memorize it for future use or have the background business processor run it for me on a regular basis. So you do have an audit trail of activity. We always know what's happening. You know what, I'm going to go back into this patient's record for just a minute here that I was in a second ago. In the demographic record, There is, you don't always have to run a report just to see who last did something. You know, maybe I need to go ask them a question. They just changed insurance or they just did this. There is a history tab right over here that's going to show you what anybody did. So as they made a change to any of the demographic fields on here or insurance or whatever, you're going to know who to go to if you need to ask a question. I don't have to go to a manager and say, can you run me a report right quick? You can see it. If I was on the payment entry screen or if I was on the charge entry screen and I wonder who entered those charges or who just did that adjustment, look over here on the far right. It's going to tell me. There is an audit trail everywhere here. Hold on a second. Didn't mean to hit that one, meant to hit that one. Down here at the bottom, if somebody went into balance control, by the way, you have to have security to come into balance control and kind of move money around and stuff or add new insurances and then move money around. But in any event, it's going to show you again who did that, how they reordered the insurance, if they, you know, added new insurance and took off Blue Cross and added something else. So you don't always have to go to reports because we've made it very visible for you. Another report that I mentioned, that contractual analysis, being able to track variances. And for each CPT code by contract for adjustments, payments, and allowed amounts. We certainly have all these collection reports, but remember the tasking is much more efficient to be able to you know, keep on top of those tasks. Different types of scheduling reports, obviously, even analysis of the kept versus no-showed versus rescheduled, et cetera, by location, by provider, by appointment type, if you want to get that granular. Task, got to be able to manage the task, right? If you want to just do a task analysis, you could come in here and say, I want to do it by user. Then I might say, I want to sort it by user. We'll quickly promote that to the top. Maybe I don't need both the ASC. See, I can roll up these reports all the way to the practice level. I could include the ASC and the clinic in any kind of reports I want to, and then page break it or sort it if I needed to do that. I don't want the completed task because I'm not doing productivity at the moment, but if I was, I could do that. I'm not going to do override either because we don't let people override their task and send them to other people. So let's see what we've got just as an analysis of outstanding tasks in different buckets like not started or in progress. So obviously we have quite a few going on. We've got some not attached, but let's go on down here. Okay, so Anita has all these different types of tasks. She's got a total task count, number percentage open, number percentage not started, and a number and percentage in progress. So this just gives you kind of an analysis, and you can subtotal it by task type or by user or work group, whatever you want to do with the grand total for whatever time period you want to pull it from. And then of course there was a detailed one there as well. Moving on down here to your daily reports. So there's daily and monthly reports, obviously, right? But just to give you a little example of a charge report, this was called a daily charge report, so I can click OK and run it as is. But again, the filter allows me to personalize my own report. I don't need all, you know, both practices. I don't need the ASC in here right now. Just going to do the clinic. I don't need patient type. Maybe I need something else that NextGen doesn't have pre-selected. But again, and I can rename these columns, you know, to be anything that I want to be. So, you know, just kind of look through here and say, well, what does NextGen have in this standard report that I do or don't want? Now, once I get all my columns, like we mentioned, settled, I might again want to sort it. Maybe this particular report I want to do by provider. So there's a find button over here. That's a good problem to have, right? Because that means that we have a lot of fields there for you. So I'm going to search for the rendering because I want to do this by the rendering, and I'm going to promote that quickly to the top. Then if I wanted to add location or practices, I can do that too. Now, the additional settings list over here are so you can get even more granular, right? I might have my CPT codes departmentalized. So where I just want to get, you can see here, you can create whatever department you want. So maybe I just want all the procedures, surgical codes or whatever. So, or just the E&M codes. So again, I might not want to include all. And same thing, maybe one provider comes up to me and says, hey, can you run me a report on, you know, whatever. And I could come in here and say, okay, Dr. Rosen just asked me for a report. Somebody's got him in there twice too, but I would filter him over there because that's all I need in the report. So very easy to interact with. Again, I'm going to go to the date range. I'm going to change my date range just because this is a demo environment. I'm going to exclude the voids because we play around all the time. And we'll run the charge report as I've kind of configured myself. So I said I wanted it by provider, sorted by provider. So obviously I said I also wanted a detailed report initially. So look over here on the left, this is Dr. Asavada. In the center, you've got a charge amount and a charge count. As I kind of go down here, you'll start to see subtotals and another doctor. Here's Dr. Barclay. Now, anytime you have a patient name or account number or something represented, we have that same drill down capability. So again, I can go right to that item. Don't have to remember the encounter number, date of service. My report is still there. Everything pretty much is, you can drill down in NextGen. Still can go over to the EHR if I had security, but then I can come right back to my report. Now, the cool thing is that when you initially say, hey, I want to make this report my own and I want to put my own report columns on it, you might look at it when you first preview it and say, you know what, I did not intend to get this description. So again, I can take things off that I might not have needed without going back to that filter. Maybe I don't want who modified it or anything, so I'm going to take those columns off. And then maybe I have it how I want it from a detailed perspective. Now, another neat thing is I can go back and forth between the details and the totals. Maybe I wanted to look at the detail, but ultimately this is what I wanted. This could be departments of CPT codes, financial classes, referring providers, anything you wanted it to be. I just happened to pull it by rendering. Now there's little icons up here at the top. I can graph it, I could do export to Excel, whatever, and it'll look exactly, if I export it manually to Excel, it'll look exactly what you're viewing in NextGen. You don't have to reformat the columns or anything. But I'm going to show you analytics in a moment because that's much more powerful than, graphing it from here and things. But if this was a report I did want to save for future use, I'm going to rename it, right? It means something for me. So I'm going to save it, name it, and I'm going to hold it under a report type of my choice. So you might have your own name here. You might have these are just monthly reports or, whatever you want to call them, right? You can put it anywhere you want to. And then if you need to tie security, you can. Maybe nobody's allowed to run it but you. Maybe they can run it, but they can't modify it. So you'll put user groups or users who's allowed to view my report. And then once you save it, the next time you want to run it on demand, there's a little icon here at the very top. I'm only going to see the reports that I can get to. And here's a lot of contractual analysis types for car reports and stuff. But all my reports will be here. The report types that I have security to get to. But don't forget that the background business processor can also run them automatically. You may have, a packet here that says these are our financial reports. We can even do clinical reports. We can do scheduling reports. So any kind of reports you want to run automatically, they can run to a designated printer or to your email address, and they will already be an Excel spreadsheet attachment. So you wouldn't have to put it into Excel. But you always need to be able to run them on demand whenever you want to, even if the background business processor is going to run it tomorrow. So that's a little bit about the standard report writer. And then if there's not any questions about that, I'll move into the analytics.
There was one question that came in on the reporting front, Susan, from Tara. And she's wondering if there's a report for the number of cases in a year by patient age.
Cases by patient age. I can come in here and let me see if I have patient cases with, well, I should have chose the one with demographics. But if I put, let me see if a birth date or age. Age is not here. Birth date is probably here. We can get it from the EHR though, because cases show up over there. They probably do it by date of birth.
You mistyped that one.
Effective date. Looking to see if we had birth date in here by chance. Maybe, let's see here if we have it in patient case, patient chart demographics. Let me, you know what, we'll double check on that, but a lot of them can be done by age, and we can get it from the EHR because age and in between ages, less than, greater than, is a part of our standard report writer and on the clinic side. So we can recognize cases over there. So now let me ask you this. Are you talking about cases where we're grouping encounters together, or are you just talking about a procedure case? You call each procedure that you do, like we did a colonoscopy, that's a case, before I jot down the information I'm going to look into.
Specific procedure.
Okay. So we have some standard case reports with our ASC content, if you're referencing in that area. But let me check to see if it has an age range. I'm going to jot that down.
I will say if it does not have an age range, Sarah, that we'll create that. Absolutely. GBS does that all day, every day, and create you a report that you can always run.
I was just going to say, Vince, I'm like 99% sure that would not be an issue. But yeah, whether it be creating a value or whatever, yeah, definitely possible. It's not already there.
Because it's definitely in the database. So we can get to it.
Yeah, anything with any discrete data element, we can create a report for, and it does not take long.
So there's no other questions. We are coming up on one. Colleen, would you be okay, or does your team have a couple more minutes to check out these analytics by chance? I don't want to hold anyone longer than but I also don't want you to miss out on this stuff. Okay, they said they had time. Go ahead, Susan. Thank you.
All right. So let me go ahead and log in. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about it before I start kind of navigating around. So it is a cloud-based application. There is an app for it, so you can have it on your phone and just check on these these values, these visualizations anytime that you want to. So what came up automatically when I logged in, and again, play along with me, this is a demo environment, but it's going to be totally configured for you. Over here on the left-hand side, this is my home screen. Think about a home screen as being like a management dashboard, right? Or you may have one set up for all the providers to look at, or, whatever it is that you need. One to do with denials or, things of importance that you need to follow up on. So mine, or ours for this demo, really just has a variation of from a little bit of every area, just to have a discussion around. But all of these have some common themes going on, right? I can advance to full screen. I can resize them so that they're larger. Or I could have 3 representations, on one line or whatever. They all have, little drop downs here where I can, export or filter. Most of them have a lot more filters than this, but you have different exporting capabilities right here. I can, hover over this little I for information here, and that's going to really kind of explain the big picture purpose NextGen has for it, in case you have forgotten. So here, resource utilization, this is looking at the empty appointment slots, right? And I can drill down by provider, by location, or whatever, because empty appointment slots cost us money. So we want to, be able to track the utilization of when we think about, our schedule, and how many potentially we could have, filled with appointments. We want to make sure that, we don't have a lot of empty appointment slots. Over here on the right, what's affecting our cash flow? We all know it's charges, payments, adjustments, and refunds, right? And you can see a lot of times when I hover, ledger information here that is provided about this particular report. Now, this one, oftentimes we see that practices have this one set up for the provider so that they can quickly look at things, that they may want to look at. And this is one that I often see that they kind of export the raw data from, because they may want to manipulate it further or something like that. But it's very easy to, export that into raw data. And let me see here if I can close that down right quick. And then bill and submission lag. I mean, there's all different reasons why we have bill submission lag, but sometimes it's the providers not getting their notes completed and their charges, captured. If you ever have had that problem, then again, we can identify in that example at the provider level, which ones are, causing us the problems here. So now we're going to look at this by provider. Eligibility verification, we should be doing pretty good with verifications, because we can automatically do that, right? Denials, just a little sampling of denials here, and this is the value and volume. Again, if I hover, but I can drill down to different levels like the reason code, so I can identify very quickly those reason codes. So just providing you these valuable insights and eliminating the guesswork out of the problem areas here. I can even go all the way down to the transaction level, and that's a report representation of the details of what I selected. So while that's coming up, we'll talk a little bit more about the days in AR here. So the days in AR, again, there's different ways of looking at your AR, right? But you'll notice some benchmarking. Now, if you want to participate, it's just an option. We are comparing it to industry standards by specialty or region from our customer base. And that's why it's an option here, but there's a lot of them. We have examples of being able to look at the benchmarking information. Another receivable analysis, this is by provider. You can see here, and you can see again what's represented if I hover. And then patients by referral sources. If you're capturing where those referrals are coming from, you can make it required in NextGen that information is captured so that, hold on a second, I think that report came up. So just showing you that you can get all the way to the details in these visualizations here. This is patient by referral source. Let me close that back down for a second here. But what are your referral sources? If you think about them, you can create them as far as like a marketing plan or stuff. And then you can identify, we're getting more referrals from this certain provider, or most of our referrals are from, them Googling us or something, or our drive-by sign, or maybe a patient referral. So again, giving you valuable information in that area. Now up here at the top, getting off of my home dashboard or management dashboard, I'm going to move into, a little bit of everything here. Now this follows the life cycle of revenue. So I can see the subtabs, all of our billing volume, our payments, our AR, a whole tab dedicated to denials, payer analysis, and then those tasks that are associated from that billing perspective. You're seeing some widgets here. Now, you've not seen widgets on my home screen, but now we have some widgets here, which is a different way of looking at the information that was represented. So again, we talked about billing submission lag and things like that, but if there is a problem area, this is pretty cool because this will drill down very quickly to the contributing factors. And we've got it into 4 different categories. So if you look here, again, is it the providers that's causing us a problem? Is it a payer financial class? Is it a payer, or is it CPT codes? So again, we're going to break it out and take the guesswork out of, okay, if we do have a problem, very quickly identifying what it is. So again, I'm not going to, because we're over on time, I'm not going to go through all of these, but they all have that same kind of drill down, information provided. Here's your daily encounters and charges created. We do separate it out by telehealth. So if you're doing any telehealth in many areas, we've already separated it out for you. And then just your total billed encounters. And then down here, the next couple are really about, the unbilled amounts that we got sitting out there, and those that are greater than 5 days. And then the monthly trending on both of those. Now, back up here to the top, getting into payments. Again, do we have any payment lag? What's going on with our payments? We've talked about charges, payments, refunds, adjustments. There it is for telehealth. There's a couple I'm trying to get down to in the bottom, but here's by specialty. So I can drill down to the taxonomy code from here. So when you think about, separating out, we can roll this up to the enterprise level too, by the way, not just our standard reporting. So the ASC, as well as your clinic, could be defined in all of these visualizations. Your payment percentage, your payment lag again, telehealth. If you're using RVUs, we've got the work one here. And some people say we're not using it, but we find this valuable because even if we're not compensating our providers based on RVUs, we still like to look at it to see what would it look like, right? And so they do drill down to the provider level just because they find it useful information for them. And so there you have that. And then again, now this charges, payments, refunds we talked about. This one's looking at the date of service because sometimes you might have to hover to say, is this, what perspective is it from, right? Is it from process date, date of service, create date? So here we decided to take it out of the eye for information and put it right here on the header, on the little banner, so that you know what perspective it's looking at. And then how about waterfall reports? Waterfall reports are, very popular, but hard for most people to create in their systems. So these waterfall reports are nice. Now this is the value percent, but right below it is the actual dollar value. And again, we have the same kind of filters over here on the right-hand side as to how you might want to look at this information. And then let's see here. You know what? There was one other, let me go back down to the very bottom of this. Look at this billing staff productivity. I didn't quite get all the way to the bottom on the billing, but now you've got, look, bill encounter percent, claims submitted. If I want to drill down to the actual biller, I can get down to the staff. And so that will give you, you know, a different perspective there by each biller's name. Moving into your AR, just a lot of different ways of looking at your AR, right? By month, by day. And this one also has telehealth, and it also has aging from a charge process date in the typical buckets that we think of, right? And then a little bit lower, we've got it just with 90 days greater. So everybody typically focuses on 90 days or greater. And you can see here what's sitting in, remember the buckets we talked about, patient versus insurance, and now those that are greater than 90 days. But again, do I need to drill down to, you know, specific levels there, even providers and things like that. I love the fact that we have, this is one of my favorites, a whole tab dedicated to denials, because if denials are an issue for us, we need to recover. So what I love is the one all the way down here. This is just a lot of different ways of looking at your denials. But down here is the recovery information, the volume percent and everything. What about the value? This is the favorite of our client base now that we have this one, because, and by the way, we're tracking over 100 KPIs, key performance indicators. But right here, this shows us if we recover or if we don't recover, what is the dollar value associated with it? So if we don't recover from these denials, we are leaving a lot of money on the table in my demo world, at least. So again, you know, valuable insights here that I can drill down to completely different levels as needed. And then, of course, the payer analysis. This is just, you know, bills submitted to different payers, collections by payers, same thing with telehealth. E&M, the next four are all about E&M, percentages and numbers. And then, of course, your really your financial class mix. And then the last one here is tasking. My favorite one about tasking is this one over here. We are aging those tasks kind of like we would AR, right? Because these tasks, again, it's kind of like those denials. If we don't recover from those, they're costing us money. If these tasks are just sitting out there, you know, we obviously need to keep on top of them. So I could go down to that task type. I could go down to the details of all those tasks, because as a manager, if we've got them sitting way out there and not being able to be completed, there's some kind of issue going on. So again, taking the guesswork out of, are there underperforming areas, or are there problem areas that we need to take a look at? And again, I could drill down into the task details to get a report so I can get to the more granular information that I may need. And that'll just come up as a regular report like we talked about before. All right. And then moving over here to the left to operational. Now, this is all about checking in, copay collection, appointments, canceled appointments, rescheduled appointments. Some of these we talked about, like eligibility and where our referring sources came from. But you can see here, it's all about rescheduled. Now, rescheduled and utilization. I had utilization, empty appointment slots on my home screen. Now, if patients aren't giving us enough notice, that could potentially impact the resource utilization. So we are tracking if they give us less than 48 hours notice of rescheduling an appointment, because we know that that could potentially cause a problem with us, you know, filling that appointment slot. Now, here's your scheduling staff productivity. Now, the employee names would be here where we're generic, but, you know, now this is not taking into consideration any patient self-scheduling that's taken place. This is just looking at, like, the audit trail, right, of, you know, the staff productivity. And again, if you want to drill down from different perspectives, you can. And then there's just a few more here with the wait list. If you're using a wait list, who are they waiting for most often? What location? And then, of course, canceled appointments. And then the sub-tab for check-in under operations, kept versus no-show. Again, I can drill down to different levels to get more granular, and maybe there's one problem location or, you know, one area. And these are just how many encounters we created, because remember, an appointment in NextGen does not equal an encounter. The encounter is created when we check a patient in. And then copay collections at the time of service. And then again, a good explanation of what we're looking at to, you know, to calculate and provide you these analytics. But again, we could drill down into whoops, didn't mean to do that, but we can drill down to that user level. So we can see, you know, who's collecting the most at the time of service. And that may take, well, no, it was faster than I thought. Here, down to the user to see if anybody's collecting. And then marketing, we've already discussed marketing with capturing, you know, where our referrals are coming from and associating dollar values to them. So again, you know, if I want to look at the dollar values that are being associated with a referral category or a marketing plan that we had in place. So I'm going to pause there. I know that was kind of a quick run through to give you an idea of some of those KPIs that we are tracking on a daily basis. But again, there's enterprise support. This is role-based as well. We configure it for you. However, you do have, whoever has security over on the left-hand side, you can get to that configure area so you can do some of your own.
Susan, there was one additional question that came through in regards to state reporting, asking if there was like a quarterly demographic error report, like with, I think in regards to uploading to like the state website. I'm not sure if I articulated that properly.
Well, I know what you're talking about. So now, Ryan, our technical consulting services have created special reports for not all states, but the states that have been requested. We have state reporting for, are you talking about for your ASCs?
Tara Schaefer, yes, they're saying yes to the ASC.
Yeah, because we have, okay, so yeah, that's not anything that I have to show, but we can definitely, are you just in PA or do you cross any other states?
I believe they're just in PA. Yep, PA.
Okay. Ryan, I will check on that to see if we've already done that report. We have a lot of ASC reports. Like I said, if it's been requested from our clients, we've already done it.
Awesome. Perfect. We'll kind of add that to our list, Susan.
Okay.
Awesome. Any other questions from the CDHN side? That was a lot. I'm hoping everyone's mind blown. Okay. Nothing else coming through.
Okay, well, thanks everyone so much. And thanks for the interaction, the great questions. We love it when it's interactive and we can make sure, you know, that you're benefiting from what we're sharing.
Awesome. Susan, you did a wonderful job as always. So we're going to have the ASC, the Ambulatory Surgery Center content demo next Wednesday. We're going to have the electronic health record EHR demo next Thursday. I know that we've compiled a couple questions. I had one that I jotted down about split payments. Ricky, if you're getting anything from the folks on site, please bring that back to us. If there's no other questions, Vince, I'm not sure if you have anything, but we'll kind of regroup next week. And just so you know, Colleen, I'm going to plan to be on site with you for both of the ASC and clinical demos next week.
Yep, same for me. I wish I was there today. And Colleen, thank you. Apparently, you guys heard that I'm a little under the weather right now, so I'm recovering. And as long as I'm good, if you guys are okay with it, I'd like to join you in person as well next week. But if not, I'm not going to risk anything. But thank you all for joining today. Thank you all for staying on the entire time. I noticed that nobody dropped. I hope that it was helpful for you guys and interactive for you. If there's any further questions, though, that you guys didn't think of that you do have, go ahead and just let Ryan and myself know of those, and we'll get those answers as well. So if you think of anything in the near future before those next demos, that'd be great. And they said, awesome. Very good demo, Susan. Thank you.
Yep, you're getting compliments, Susan. Thanks again. Ashley, thanks for helping me coordinate as always. I hope everyone has a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care now.